So, the UK government just dropped a budget bomb, and if you own property, invest in it, or even think about one day affording a down payment, you might want to sit down. Because what just happened wasn't a gentle fiscal nudge, it was a full-on wealth slap, a bureaucratic middle finger to decades of property-first investment culture. We're talking taxes, caps, cuts, hikes, and policy pivots so sharp they could slice through a lease agreement. This budget doesn't just tap the brakes on property investment, it rips the steering wheel off and throws it into the Thames.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Let's start with the nuclear headline: a new property tax aimed squarely at luxury homes. If your place is worth more than £2 million, congratulations, you've been upgraded to the government's new favorite piggy bank. Starting in 2028, you'll be charged an extra £2,500 per year. And don't get too comfortable with that number, it's set to scale higher the more valuable your home is. And sure, this technically only affects about 1% of UK homes, but here's the thing about luxury real estate: when the top end sneezes, the rest of the market catches pneumonia. High-end buyers get skittish, developers pause projects, estate agents start sweating through their designer suits, luxury prices soften, and boom, you've got a ripple effect that hits everything from Kensington penthouses to aspirational townhouses in Zone 5. The message here is loud and clear: that once sacred rule of UK property being the untouchable, tax-free golden goose, it's gone, scrambled, cooked. But wait, it gets spicier. Let's talk landlords, investors, the buy-to-let brigade. You guys were already dealing with the slow death of mortgage interest relief, and now the government's coming for your pension game too. That nifty little salary sacrifice loophole where you could tuck away big chunks of cash into your pension tax-free and then use it for deposits or renovations. Capped. Brutally. As of 2029, you'll only be allowed to sacrifice up to £2,000 into pensions before HMRC swoops in for their share. That's pocket change compared to what seasoned landlords were funneling through before. Translation: more tax, less liquidity. And just to really twist the knife, they've slapped a 2% tax increase across all investment income, rental profits, dividends, even savings interest. Because apparently, making money through assets is now little to 2010s. And if you're sitting there with a tidy portfolio of, say, 10 properties, experts are estimating that this budget could cost you an extra £8,000 to £12,000 annually. That's not just a rounding error, that's an entire tenant's rent gone to the taxman. Now you might be thinking, well, that's rich people problems, right? But here's the catch: the entire property market in the UK has been built on the promise that bricks and mortar equal security. For landlords, it was the path to passive income. For first-time buyers, it was the dream. For everyone else, it was the safety net that supposedly never failed. For example, the two-child benefit limit. Scrapped. That's a massive move. It could pull hundreds of thousands of families out of poverty, which is great news for tenant stability, but it also shifts the incentives around rental demand. Suddenly, larger family homes are in vogue again. Add in the doubling of minimum wage, and you've got a new class of tenants with more disposable income and fewer reasons to skip rent. For landlords who pivot to family-oriented properties in the right areas, this could actually be a win. Keyword: pivot. Because if you're still clinging to that model of small flats in dodgy commuter zones with razor-thin profit margins and sky-high service charges, the market is coming for you. And it's not bringing flowers. Now, let's talk about the government's Hail Mary: infrastructure. They've earmarked a jaw-dropping £13 billion for transport projects, rail upgrades in the Midlands, Northern Powerhouse Rail, the whole connect the country shebang. According to projections, property near these new lines could spike in value by 20 to 30% in the next 5 years. That's not a footnote, that's a siren call for investors with the stomach to reposition fast. We're not talking central London anymore. Think smaller towns about to become 40-minute train rides from major cities. Think overlooked postcodes about to glow up into commuter hotspots. This is where the new money is going to flow if, and only if, you're agile enough to move ahead of the curve. Because that's the running theme here. Adapt or get crushed. The days of buy and hold and watch it grow are gone. This budget is punishing passivity. If you want to stay in the game, you need to re-strategize. Prioritize energy-efficient properties. Get friendly with emerging family demographics. Bet on regions, not just postcodes. And absolutely stay glued to policy shifts, because this budget makes one thing very clear. Property is no longer immune to political whims. So what's the big picture? The UK government is trying to pull off a high-wire balancing act.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
On one hand, they're gambling on big infrastructure investments to stimulate growth, create jobs, and elevate forgotten regions. On the other, they're slapping higher taxes on wealth, investment, and income to plug fiscal holes. But with productivity tanking and tax revenues uncertain, this feels less like a master plan and more like a desperate shuffle of the deck chairs while the ship creaks under pressure. And if you're thinking, well, maybe they're just trying to cool the market, sure. But there's a difference between cooling and freezing. If the market gets too spooked, if investors pull out, landlords liquidate, and buyers sit on the sidelines, this could backfire hard. And then we're staring down the barrel of declining property values, falling construction, and rental shortages. Which brings us to the real kicker. This budget doesn't just tax your wealth, it challenges the entire mythology of UK property. The idea that owning homes is the smartest, safest investment, that's over. The government is essentially saying, sure, you can get rich off property, but we're taking a cut. A big one. And it might not be worth it anymore. So what do you do? If you're an investor, this is your cue to get ruthless. Streamline your portfolio. Cut dead weight. Focus on growth corridors. Think sustainability, family demand, commuter access. If you're a prospective buyer, this is a good time to watch the market, see how it digests the chaos, and look for regional opportunities that could quietly boom while everyone's distracted. And if you're a landlord hoping things will just go back to normal, sorry, but that train has left the station, probably on a newly funded line out of the Midlands. In the end, what the UK government just did wasn't a tweak or a reform. It was a reset. They're not just taxing property, they're redefining it. And whether you come out richer, poorer, or just emotionally exhausted depends entirely on how fast you can pivot. Because in this new era of post-budget madness, survival doesn't go to the strongest. It goes to the fastest. Comment below. What's your take on the property tax blitz, smart redistribution, or a slow-motion crash? And don't forget to subscribe for more chaotic deep dives into the financial decisions that keep us all up at night. Alright, so we've established the UK government just played property Jenga with a flamethrower and somehow acted surprised when the tower started wobbling. But we're not done. Not even close. Because once you dig deeper into this budget, you realize this wasn't a single, targeted policy. It was a full frontal assault on every pillar that once held up the British property fantasy. Let's talk about who's getting quietly obliterated in the process. The middle-tier investor. Not the mega landlords with 200 units and a tax team on speed dial. And not the single homeowner just clinging to their little semi-detached in slough. No, we're talking about the accidental landlords. The folks who inherited a property or bought a buy-to-let 10 years ago thinking it would pay for the kids' uni. The small business owners who used their pension savings to grab a few flats. These are the people being silently crushed under the weight of new taxes, lower returns, and rising regulatory pressure. Remember when landlords were the golden children of post-2008 economics, when buy-to-let was the cheat code. Interest rates were low, lending was easy, and the entire system basically whispered, go on, just buy one more. Now, the whispers have turned into shouts, and they're saying, get out, or get smart. And the irony, some of the very reforms being praised as progressive might trigger a rental squeeze that hits tenants hardest. Think about it. If landlords sell off their properties because margins are disappearing, and fewer people want to deal with the rising tax headaches, that's less rental stock. Less supply plus constant or rising demand equals, you guessed it, higher rents. So, congratulations government, in your rush to level the playing field, you might have just pulled the rug out from under a generation of renters who already couldn't buy and now might not even afford to rent. But okay, let's take a breath and talk about one of the more theatrically optimistic parts of this whole budget saga. Infrastructure as salvation. On paper, it sounds glorious. Billions pouring into neglected regions, shiny new train stations, faster commutes, a rebalanced economy. Cue the dramatic slow-motion montage of cranes lifting steel beams while politicians in hard hats nod meaningfully. But here's the question nobody wants to ask out loud. Can the government actually deliver on any of it? Because infrastructure spending isn't just about funding, it's about execution. And if you've paid attention to literally any major UK transport project in the last 2 decades looking at you, HS2 you'll know delays, budget overruns, and political U-turns are practically built into the blueprint. Still, if we're being fair, the investment focus could reshape the property map. There are towns, forgotten places bypassed by investment for years that might now become hotspots. The savvy investor sees beyond the noise and looks for the pre-viral moments. Places like these could go from where to wow in a matter of years. It's not guaranteed, but if the government follows through, we're looking at a quiet property revolution, one not happening in London, but along those soon-to-be electrified tracks cutting through the countryside. Now let's shift gears to something more abstract but equally unnerving, the psychological shift. The UK property market has never just been about supply and demand. It's been about faith. Faith that property always goes up. That no matter how bad things get, bricks and mortar will protect you. That even if the economy tanks, your house is your stronghold. This budget chips away at that faith. It signals, loudly, that property is no longer sacred. That the taxman isn't just content with your salary, he's coming for your capital gains, your rental income, your pension wrappers, and your inheritance planning. And when people start doubting that their home is their safety net, that's when behavior shifts. Fewer investments, slower sales, buyers hesitate, developers pause. The entire ecosystem gets colder, more cautious, more cynical. It's like the government walked into a casino, flipped over the roulette table, and said, "The house always wins." But now we're the house. And here's another twist for you. This entire budget assumes people won't panic. That landlords will shrug and pivot. That buyers will nod and adjust. But what if they don't? What if they pull back entirely? Because panic isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like listings that don't move, or renovation projects that never get off the ground, or portfolios that just quietly stagnate. It's the slow bleed of a market losing its nerve. And that fear becomes contagious. People start whispering things like, "Maybe now's not the time to buy," or "Should we just sell and wait it out?" And suddenly, you're not just dealing with policy changes, you're dealing with a confidence crisis. Meanwhile, the folks who don't have time to panic, tenants, they don't get to wait and see. They're still on Rightmove at 2 a.m. trying to find something half-decent that won't eat 60% of their income. And the problem is, as this budget shoves landlords out and investment dries up, the rental market tightens. Demand doesn't shrink, it intensifies. And when demand spikes and supply shrinks, guess what happens? Yep, higher rents. Again. So we end up in this strange, slightly dystopian feedback loop where the very reforms designed to make housing more equitable might actually make it harder to access, at least in the short to medium term. And that's the real kicker, isn't it? This budget promises a fairer future, but it doesn't account for the chaos it unleashes in the meantime. And let's not forget about developers. Because while landlords are currently the government's favorite punching bag, developers aren't exactly skipping away from this unscathed. Higher costs, less investor enthusiasm, and tighter lending conditions. That's a recipe for delayed builds and fewer projects. And with housing supply already critically short, the last thing anyone needs is more construction bottlenecks. So where does that leave us? In a market that's still trying to figure out the new rules of the game, while the referee keeps changing the scoreboard. There's no doubt we're entering a new era, one where owning property no longer guarantees wealth, and where investment requires more strategy, more flexibility, and more risk tolerance than ever before. For some, this is an opportunity to innovate, reposition, and thrive. For others, it's a warning siren. And here's the real kicker. This isn't a one-off. It's a shift in philosophy. The UK government isn't just tightening the screws temporarily. They're signaling a long-term strategy, one where asset wealth is taxed more aggressively, and where the idea of property as a tax haven is officially over. This could be the start of a years-long recalibration. If you're still here, you're clearly someone who cares about where your money's headed. So drop a comment below. Are you selling, pivoting, or clinging to hope? And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the beautiful mess that is modern economics. Next time, we might be talking crypto chaos, influencer lawsuits, or whatever celebrity decides to go full meltdown. Stay tuned. And just when you thought this property plot twist had run its course, oh no. The final act hasn't even started. Because now we're wading into the murky waters of what happens next, and spoiler alert, it's less of a happy ending and more of a choose-your-own disaster. Let's be honest. For years, property investment in the UK has been a kind of national sport. Forget cricket, buy-to-let was the real British pastime. You didn't need a financial degree or a team of analysts. Just grab a mortgage, rent it out, sit back, and watch the value climb. Rinse and repeat. It was practically folklore. But that old game, it's broken. The rules are being rewritten by people who don't care if you bought in 2015 and are still just breaking even. They don't care if your tenant just asked for a new boiler and a rent freeze. They certainly don't care if your remortgaging costs just doubled. The new game is called regulation roulette, and every spin could land on another tax, levy, or cap that chips away at your already strained margins. And what's wild is how fast it's happening. These aren't gradual tweaks. These are cold, calculated shakeups dropped like bombs into your spreadsheets. Overnight, your entire 5-year plan looks outdated. That rental yield you were banking on, slashed. That pension pot trick you loved, sealed off. That equity play in a once sleepy suburb, now a big question mark with train station-shaped hope on the horizon. This isn't just financial, it's psychological whiplash. And while you're processing all that, you're also watching the government try to sell it with a straight face. We're supporting growth. We're helping renters. We're investing in the future. And sure, some of that may be true. But right now, it feels less like support and more like a stress test you didn't sign up for. Because behind every tax hike and policy shift is a question no one wants to answer. What if it doesn't work? What if productivity doesn't rebound? What if infrastructure projects stall? What if property prices don't surge in those new commuter belts? What if the market just loses confidence? That's the real risk here. Not just paying more taxes, but watching the entire property value narrative unravel. Slowly, quietly, inevitably. So, yeah, this budget wasn't just about numbers. It was a gut check. A wake-up call for anyone who thought they could sleepwalk their way to generational wealth through bricks and mortar. You've got two choices now: adapt fast and smart, or watch the game change without you. And if you're still not sure what move to make, stick around. We'll keep breaking it down, exposing the chaos, and maybe just maybe helping you survive the next plot twist. Hit that subscribe button, and let's navigate this madness together. Because in this version of Monopoly, the bank always wins. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.